Harry's Wife, part 78.6. Oh, sit down. Video analysis. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and we have a further video analysis to help you understand more about the interactions between Harry's wife and other people, and showing the relevant dynamic that occurs. The footage that I'm going to play you is apparently when Harry's wife visited something called Mothers to Mothers on the South Africa Royal Tour, and was covered by none other than Hello, which of course provides favourable coverage as part of the facade management and the assertion of control through PR management. What I'm going to do is allow the footage to play so that you can hear what's being said and just watch it for yourself in terms of the interaction between Harry's wife and the assembled mothers and people involved with the project. And then I'll play it again as I explain to you the analysis vis-a-vis the narcissistic dynamic. There are, in essence, two clips. The first is where Harry's wife is sat with a group of people, including some children, addressing them before getting onto the floor, and then there's addressing the group essentially for a photo opportunity, closing out the visit. I'll allow you now to watch the footage so that you can make your own assessments as to what you think is going on, and then you can listen to my analysis to determine whether you were accurate with regard to your own assessment or not.
We have one here. We can all sit down here because we can all really
Thank you.
Trying to get on the floor. Come on, it's fine. Hi. Let's all play.
I'd like to introduce you and ask you to continue.
Okay. I can't be the only one.
No,
sitting
come on,
down.
everyone needs to come back. Please.
I was thinking it was Archie and we had all these toys in the middle, but I think it was in the chair and just that one
Maybe
thing.
grab it. So please, I'd like to now ask her so she would continue.
In the spirit of community, what's so nice is to be able to share some of the things that we have done at home as well. And so, we can obviously make sure anything we need is provided. We brought some of the things that my friends and I used for our kids, and Archie, then he said, yeah, don't fit anymore. Oh, yeah, you say that. No, it's fine. Just little things that I thought would be helpful for everything. He's outgrown it. I think it's a big this one. But at any rate, there's all sorts of things there that I thought, it's so important to be able to share what's work for our families and show that we were all in this together with each other. So we just wanted to share something from our home to each of yours. So you'll have his and their photo bags back there as well. Yeah, look at who's having the best time. Living her best life. So thank you. It's really a special day. Thank you for having me.
And now we have it with the benefit of the analysis. Of course, the sound removed so there isn't any clash. You'll have seen how Harry's wife is engaging with a group of people, and she suggests that everybody sits on the floor, and she moves to do so, and nobody else follows apart from the man who I think is either part of Harry's wife's team or is some liaison, judging from the things that he has said. None of the other mothers follow her lead and demonstrate that they're not particularly engaged with her, that they are not feeling any connection between her. And of course, there are those narcissists that exude charisma and magnetism that people are drawn to. And there are others that are found to be a little bit of a cold fish. And notwithstanding her attempts to engage with them, the absence of emotional empathy has doubtless been picked up upon by those assembled, that they don't feel a natural draw to her. Contrast this with the behaviours when people met Diana, Princess of Wales, and the way that they were drawn to her magnetic qualities. Harry's wife, notwithstanding her attempts to do so, doesn't have that same level of magnetism. There's no natural warmth, no natural empathy, because there is no emotional empathy there. It's a cognitive form of empathy that is displayed. And as we've seen, she goes to the floor, nobody follows her, the man continues to talk, and she tries to engage with the little child. And of course, children are invariably reticent. And just because a child is reticent, that doesn't mean that the individual is bad or evil. But it also demonstrates again, knowing that we know of the individual concerned, that some children would naturally be drawn to people, but not here. And despite the attempts to show the book and attempt to draw the child in. Now, of course, the failure of everybody to sit down with Harry's wife is a challenge, because they're not doing what she asked for them to do, and therefore it threatens her sense of control. In effect, their failure to act upon it has wounded her. This would, of course, cause the ignition of fury, but here, her facade remains intact. We don't actually see any little glimpse of fury on this occasion. It's probably the case because she's been well fueled beforehand. There are a number of individuals there who are tertiary sources, and there's probably some secondary sources. We can hear that the camera has been clicking away in the background, and therefore that means that there is a press pack there. All eyes are on her. She's been receiving the fuel. Control has been asserted. But remember, control must be maintained on a moment-by-moment basis. And when all of the other mothers refrain from sitting down with her, this threatens her control. She doesn't notice at first because she's dealing with the young child, but then because the child doesn't come to her, and therefore there's nothing for her to focus upon, she realises that the other mothers haven't followed suit. Of course, her narcissism needs to drive her to assert control over them. She can't bark at them, "Listen, you ignorant fuckers, sit down with me or else." That would damage the facade. She can't grab the leg of the nearest lady and yank her onto the floor. That would damage the facade. She can't assert control rather indirectly, and she can't do so by a position of withdrawal. So instead, her narcissism maintains the facade and drives her to say, "I can't be the only one sitting on the floor," to again say, "Come on, sit down with me." And this time it works. And also encouraged by the gentleman, the mothers finally decide, okay, yep, we'll sit down on the floor and bring forth the various toddlers and babies, and everybody joins in. That, of course, is the provision of fuel, because they have responded to her, they've looked at her, although they haven't necessarily said anything. Their body language, by going along with this, the look in their eyes, etc., provides fuel, and also signals that they're under control, which then results in the expansive gestures from Harry's wife as she looks around at everybody, waving her arms around and continuing to talk, enabling her to dictate terms. So there is a threat to her control at that juncture, and that first clip evidences the fact that the absence of natural warmth means that people weren't drawn to her, didn't follow what she requested of them, but then did so under prompting. But this time her facade remained intact, and we didn't see the jutting jaw. We didn't see the claw. We didn't see a sudden shift in facial expression. And therefore the facade remained intact as her narcissism drove her again to assert control, and it worked a second time. Then in the second clip, all eyes are upon her. Everybody's gathered around in a semicircle of sorts. The children are having something to eat and one is playing on the mat. Everybody's looking at her, she continues to talk. And therefore the fact that all eyes are on her and that people are listening to what she's saying provides her with fuel and signals that they're under control. Therefore there is no threat to control occurring. And this means that she's been well fueled again, and we see the expansive gestures. A lot of the arm waving, hand claps to the chest, looking left and right, engaging with everybody, drawing in their fuel. And then, of course, there is a slight act of triangulation when some small gifts are produced and shown to everybody in terms of something that's been provided, which elicits a degree of applause and sympathetic noises of ah and ooh, all of which provides fuel. And you can see the reaction to the provision of that additional fuel from these tertiary sources, that there are the smiles. The smile isn't born out of genuine warmth or enjoyment at the situation, although, of course, Harry's wife will believe that is the case because she isn't aware of what she is. Her response is that to the provision of fuel. The receipt of fuel makes the narcissist feel powerful, but outwardly this will manifest as what looks like happiness, smiles, an expression and words of joy. And so, because she is being well fueled by the various individuals who've attended this, she continues to smile and gesture, and of course continues, and you'll have heard in the first part of this, the various usual language as part of that facade management, talking about being in it all together, the fact of saying the child living their best life, that awful phrase. But she's in receipt of fuel, and there's no challenge to her need for control at all during that particular segment. All eyes are on her. Every single person in that group, bar perhaps one or two of the children, are looking at her. They're listening to what she's saying. Their body language shows that they're under control because their heads are directed towards her. They're leaning in. They're looking down towards her. The people who are stood at the back, those alongside her, the lady next to her, knees pointed towards her, the lady in red leaning across. And of course, their eyes are fixed upon her. There are smiles, and there were reactions of appreciation in terms of noises made and the various smiles and clapping of all those assembled. Therefore, no challenge to control in this scenario, and instead the provision of fuel. How potent was this fuel? Not hugely so, because it's coming from tertiary sources and maybe one or two secondary sources, so it's not the most potent. What about the amount? The amount's substantial, because it's coming from a number of people who are physically proximate, and that means that there are various strands of fuel. The look in the eyes, facial expression, body language, words spoken, noises made, all of those different strands of fuel mounting like different layers in a sandwich, amounting to a large sandwich of fuel being provided for her. Frequency, well, it's constant during the interaction. It doesn't begin and then stop, or people look away. They are continuing to engage with her. So she's receiving not particularly potent fuel, but a large amount of it frequently, and there's no corresponding challenge to her sense of control. All meaning that after a slightly shaky start, where her facade held intact, she receives the fuel that she needs, maintains the control that she must, and there is also the residual benefit, of course, of the maintenance of the facade as this do-gooder who is kind and takes an interest in people and their projects. All in all, this interaction amounts to a successful one for Harry's wife, and is demonstrative of a different occasion where there was a threat to control, but this time we didn't see what lurks underneath. This time the facade remained intact. It also enables us to see the lack of natural warmth between her, showing the hesitant reaction of the mothers to begin with. Not one followed her. A useful clip showing more of the narcissistic dynamic and, of course, enabling you to understand more of the behaviour of Harry's wife. Please ensure that you like this video, show your super thanks for the hard work that your glorious narrator is putting in on your behalf to enable you to understand more about Harry's wife and narcissism. Do share this video and encourage others to come to this channel so they get the best and unrivaled information about narcissism. My thanks in advance for you doing so. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.